Hey, welcome to Whitefields Community Church Sermon Extra. These are the videos where we go a little bit deeper into topics that we're talking about on our Sunday morning sermons and help you kind of hopefully answer some questions and give some more depth that we're not able to do on Sunday mornings. Currently at Whitefields, we're going through a series through the Epistle of James, and it's called Faith in Motion. And that's really what we're talking about, is how is faith applied? What does it look like when we live out our faith? And what does that look like in practice? And that's really one of the things that James is so good on. So the past 3 Sundays, Mike has been teaching. I'm going to pick it up again this coming Sunday, but 3 Sundays in a row now, Mike, you've been teaching. I was away, and then also you were doing a great job. So we just had you continue because you had great thoughts to share. So Mike, the sermon title for this past Sunday was The Reporter of My Heart, and you were talking about the tongue. Maybe you could explain that title for us?
Sure. Well, I got the title actually from listening to a Bible study by Sinclair Ferguson on this particular topic, and I needed a title for the sermon, and he mentioned it in passing. I'm like, oh, that's a great title. But then as I, dug deeper into the actual title, The Reporter of My Heart, and basically, out of the heart flows, out of your mouth flows the things of the heart, and your mouth is reporting on basically the condition of your heart, and that's the basic the idea, and it's as was I talked about on Sunday, is that the general nature of what's going on in our lives and everything like that basically comes out of our mouths, and it's a good indicator. And I think why James was so harsh on that particular topic is because it's just a great indicator of if there's something going on in your life, it's probably coming out of your mouth, and if it's coming out of your mouth, maybe it's something that you need to deal with if it's in a negative sense. And of course, James is dealing with this topic in the negative sense. But as I talked about, in that situation, you're in a fight with your spouse or something, and something just comes out of your mouth that probably shouldn't have. That maybe it's a time to stop and say, hey, is there something in my heart, bitterness or something, unforgiveness or something that I need to deal with in my life? And it's a great indicator to, hey, let's stop and let's take care of this. And that's basically, it's a report of my heart, just reporting on what's going, the condition of my heart.
Yeah. I was going to criticize your message, but then I felt after I listened to it that you didn't want me to do that.
Yeah, that's one of the joys of teaching on James chapter 3 is that's one of the hard messages for people to criticize.
Right.
They better have something really good to criticize.
I was talking to some friends the other day. So one is a pastor, and then his son was with us, who is getting into ministry now. Excuse me. And he said, he really hates it when people talk about him. And I said, well, then you're getting into the wrong business, buddy, because every Sunday after church, people go out to restaurants and they serve up roasted preacher.
Yeah, totally.
Because that's what they do, right? Everybody goes home and, hey, what'd you think of that? And then, but I think you're right. Jesus said that, didn't he? He said, out of the fullness of the heart, the mouth speaks. Yeah. And so that's going to be good things or bad things. And I've always noticed that I'm drawn to people who speak life-giving words, especially about other people. That's something that you always notice, is how do people speak about others when they're not around.
Exactly, yeah, totally.
So, hey, James is interesting. One of the other sections you taught was this one about faith and works, which is always kind of a sticky subject. And James kind of really gives a counterpoint to some of the stuff that we studied in Romans, right? Which was a lot about the importance of faith and, how we're saved by grace alone, through faith alone, which are really important doctrines. They're key. But then James comes and he seems to be kind of giving a counterpoint to that and saying, okay, yes, that's true, but your works show whether or not you actually have real faith. And so, one of the things that we've discussed privately, but I thought it would be good for our listeners or viewers to hear, is maybe some of the background to what people think is probably the context for James writing this letter.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, as I've been studying, I've been trying to really dive into the mind, like who is who is obviously James is, from what we get from historical records and what most commentators all come to agree on, that he's speaking to the church there in Jerusalem. And I've been trying to figure out who is that guy that's sitting in the pew, all of those things that have just happened, like, Jesus dying and resurrecting, and this new faith that has come about. There's persecution happening. There's these things. The Holy Spirit has fallen. There's all of these things that are happening. And what does that look like in the life of the average, guy sitting there in the church of Jerusalem, and just kind of looking through his eyes and all of these things that are coming at him. And then this, so he receives this message of grace, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, it is nothing of me, nothing of me. It's all on the Lord. It's all grace, And how does that look, and how is he processing that information in the context of Judaism, which was basically everything was the law, and you followed, these things, and hey, you were right before the Lord. And that sense that maybe he was kind of throwing all of that out, and basically the baby with the bathwater, everything out the window. Kind of maybe the pendulum had swung to, licentiousness and antinomianism, or however you want to put it, and James is trying to bring everybody back. Yeah. to somewhere where in the middle, of hey, no, yes, it's all about grace, but what does that grace look like in your life, and how is it manifested in your life, and he's trying to do that step by step. There is a works element. Yeah, you say, well, it's all of grace and none of me, and I can just do what I want. And James is saying, no, if there's truly a change in your life, then it's going to manifest in the fruit of the Spirit in your life, and there's going to be a works element in that. You're not, and I think I said, as you're not saved by works, you're saved for works, and I think Paul puts that beautifully in Ephesians chapter 2, and that God has prepared these works for us to walk in them, and that's a pretty amazing passage to me as well.
In our modern context, I think it's a really important message, because so much today, where people would say, well, I'm a Christian because I was baptized as a baby, or maybe they raised their hand at camp when they were in middle school, or maybe they prayed a prayer one day, repeat after me type thing. And excuse me. And the question is, are you good now? Or how do I know if that worked, right? Like, how do I know if that was what I needed to do, or all I needed to do? And James kind of answers that question. Well, you'll know if you have real and living faith by looking at the fruit of your life. It will tell you. And I think it's also an important thing is that some of us, we do need to analyze, am I really in the faith? Some people need to ask that question. So I think it's an important message for today.
I think Paul says that. He tells us in Corinthians, he says, test yourselves, examine yourselves. And James has got a bunch of examinations. He's got a bunch of tests. Well, if your tongue is tamed, if you've got control, then that could be a fruit of the Spirit. But if you don't, if you're just kind of gossiping and slandering everybody, then, hey, you need to examine your life. Are you truly in the faith, right. And he's got a bunch of these different tests, and he talks about pride. He'll go on through the chapters and talk about these different things, and that's basically, I think, just following the words of Paul, just, hey, examine yourself. And James, I think, is that examination of our hearts, a barometer, basically taking, stock of truly what is in the heart, and has there been a change in your heart?
Yeah. Well, we hope that there has been a change in your heart, and we hope that James is helpful for you in that regard of examining yourself. We encourage you, hey, go listen to this sermon. The link will be below on the video. But also, tune in to all our stuff on Facebook, YouTube. You can ring that bell. You click that bell icon, and you can get notified every time we post a new video. You can also find us on SoundCloud. We are on Twitter, Instagram. We'd love for you to connect with us in every way. Leave us a comment. We'd love to interact with you if you have any questions that were not answered. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.